calling on Democrats like Joe Biden and Joe Manchin to get more aggressive on voting rights and blasting, quote, lackluster engagement from Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. The call is also starting to come from progressive Democrats in Congress. Congressman Mondaire Jones saying he told Biden to get more involved on voting rights, quote, in response, Biden just sort of stared at me, Jones said, describing an awkward silence that passed between the two. Maya J. Paul also saying Biden should do more.
I take it you don't think he's done enough publicly?
He had a tremendous amount in front of him when he came in. But yes, I think he needs to now do more on this issue.
The White House says Biden will have more to say next week. Joining me now is Ezra Levin, executive director and co-founder of Indivisible, a progressive grassroots organization. Indivisible organized hundreds of town halls, especially during the GOP's campaign to gut Obamacare. Thank you so much for being here, Ezra. I'm going to start with a video from 2017 of what it was like when Republicans were trying to shut down health care for millions of Americans and what Indivisible did. I want to get your comments on the other side. Ezra, that kind of stuff warms my heart to see people getting that excited, that engaged. So my question is, in the past, when you're talking about health care, it was like, hey, defend this policy. Republicans, you can't gut it. Don't destroy it. Democrats, hold your ground, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not really what we're looking at right now. We've got a situation where, I mean, I am as critical of Joe Biden as the next person, but his hands are kind of tied by two senators. So where do you target the protests on two senators who don't seem like they want to move on the issue?
Yeah, well, I just get chills watching those videos. I love those memories of seeing people show up and making their voice heard. And if you'll recall, what they were showing up for was to prevent the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, as you said, which was the top legislative priority of that trifecta Republican government. That's what they were trying to do. And people showed up. They made their voice heard. They scared their own representatives. They were worried. Their representatives were worried that there was going to be political repercussions for not doing it. And they backed off. It was successful. It was grassroots pressure in its finest. Now, what we have is, I would say, the opposite side of that coin. We have a different trifecta. We have a Democratic trifecta. And we are again talking about the top legislative priority of this trifecta. But instead of it being repealing the Affordable Care Act, it is protecting voting rights. It is taking political power away from billionaires. It is injecting ethics into our politics and making sure our elections are secure. That's what the For the People Act is about. And so I think there is too much attention focused on just the one Senator Manchin or Senator Sinema or any individual actor. We're talking about the entire political system needs to come together and say, we got to get this done. It's got to happen. And the answer to that isn't just what happens in West Virginia or Arizona or any other particular state. The whole system needs to feel it. So we're organizing with over 100 partners nationally, these Deadline for Democracy events all across the country, every single state, right? The point of that is, sure, pressure on Arizona senator, pressure on California senator who said some stuff that we don't like, pressure on West Virginia. That's important, but it's important that it's everywhere. You need it everywhere so that when those politicians come back to Washington, D.C. in July, they aren't saying, okay, we'll move on to reconciliation. We'll move on to bridges. They're saying, oh, my gosh, we've got to do something about this because I'm getting yelled at back at home.
So, Ezra, this is what occurs to me with this. I loved your tweet, and we're gonna hopefully bring it up. There's a tweet that you did earlier about all the things that previous presidents have done, right? You had President Obama, and he would have debates over the ACA with the whole Republican caucus, and Bill Clinton gave tons of speeches, and Bush did things for tax cuts. What is Joe Biden doing? And that's the thing. You know, I am concerned when I hear the president say, I'll get back to you in a week. I'm concerned when I only hear sort of snippets of comments here and there. If you were sitting in the White House right now, what would you be screaming from the top of the Raptors that Joe Biden and Vice President Harris need to be doing right now? Not next week, not next Thursday, right here, right now, with the bully pulpit that they have.
Oh, great question. So I wouldn't be screaming. I would be respectful, and I would advise him to use the full force of his office to actually make this a priority. And we know what that looks like because the president has done it before. He did this on COVID relief. He did this on the recovery plan. He's doing it right now on infrastructure. But look, You cannot tell me that the crisis of crumbling bridges or roads that need to be paved is a bigger crisis than the crumbling of our democracy. You cannot convince me of that. And look, the president himself says that. So if he believes what he's saying, look, I would say use the force of your bully pulpit. Drive the media coverage, drive public attention to this issue. Get creative. Go to Texas, go to Arizona, go to Florida, go to Georgia. Hold a rally in front of the White House. Give a speech from the Oval Office. It isn't rocket science. This is done by every successful president. This is how they move their agenda. So I think you were exactly right. I worked my butt off to get Joe Biden to become president of the United States. Indivisible leaders across the country did this, and they did it because they wanted him to fix what was wrong with our democracy. They're counting on him. So I have not been happy with what he's done so far. But look, this is his moment. This is the time for presidential leadership. It has failed in the Senate just this week. Mitch McConnell says, "Nope, we're not even going to discuss it." Now's the time for the president to come down and say, we are discussing it. I am going to demand that we discuss it, and I'm going to talk about nothing else but democracy until we get it done.
I honestly think that if President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris just stood in line with some voters for 2.5 hours and had C-SPAN cover them, that would be the biggest message they could give about why we need some electoral changes. Ezra, Levin, thank you so much for your time.